Welcome back to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. I am Paul Perdichizzi, and thank you for joining me as always. The 2023 NFL Draft is about 5 weeks away. Here at Saturday to Sunday, we are deep into our TierBuster Series. We kicked it off last week discussing the 2023 quarterback tiers, went through all four of my tiers, my rankings within the tiers, who could maybe make some tier jumps up. This week, we turn our attention to the running backs, and then next week, we'll finish it out with the pass catchers, a separate show for the wide receivers, and another one for the tight ends before we kind of set the stage to bring on some guests to pick their brains, some of the best in the industry, people that, we've had on in the past, that it's really great to talk to them and get their insight. But today, be talking running backs again, just like last time. Let me bring up the tiers that represent our exclusive tiers here at Saturday to Sunday. So I'm going to screen share for the people watching on YouTube, just so you can see our actual tiers as well. So this shows what our tiers look like for the running back position. Guys that we have for tier one are guys that we think are potential round one or early round two NFL draft selections. We think from the fantasy aspect of it, they're locked in the top 6 dynasty rookie picks, most likely. They are day one starters. Many traits are above average, with at least one being rare to elite. These players can and should be the focal point of the run game with the ability to contribute in the passing game. Our tier 2 are guys that we think are mid-round 2 to mid-round 3 running back selections in the NFL draft. We think they're mid-round 1 to early round 2 dynasty rookie picks. They're a lead running back in the committee backfield. Several traits are above average to very good. These players can and should contribute immediately to the run game and have the capacity to contribute and be a factor in the passing game. There are maybe some concerns about their ability to be a 3-down back. We know true 3-down backs and true bell cows, they are a dying breed in the NFL. So these are guys that we think could become leads of committees and be an integral part of a backfield. Our tier 3 are guys that we think could sneak into the back end of round 3 or be round 4 selection. So last year we had guys, in the NFL world who fit this category, like Brian Robinson, Dameon Pierce, Zamir White. We think in rookie drafts, they're round 2 to early round 3 dynasty rookie picks, obviously landing spot and stuff, but we think they could be as early as round 2, or if it's a bad landing spot or whatever, maybe push to early round 3. We think they're a committee running back with upside. Some traits are above average. These players offer a competitive advantage as runners or as pass catchers. They could emerge into even bigger roles of the backfield by the end of year 1 or year 2. Our tier 4 are round 5, round 6 guys. These are guys that we think in fantasy could be round 3, round 4 dynasty rookie picks. These are guys that we think could develop into the lesser part of a committee or be valuable handcuffs. Several solid traits. These players have a complementary skill set that can develop into a specialized role or a lesser part of a committee in the future and capable of leading the backfield and maintaining the integrity of the offense if called upon due to injury. And then tier 5 are our late round UDFA selection types. Their late round or watch list for dynasty rookie picks, their depth, third, fourth string or practice squad developmental running backs. So those are our 5 tiers that we have for the running back position. So let's kind of take this now to my tier 1, and my tier 1 is made up of simply Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. So I have 2 guys in there. I understand that Bijan Robinson might be the only one that goes in round 1. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is worthy of going late round 1. If he doesn't go late round 1, I think he will be gone early in round 2. Think about where Breece Hall went last year. Think about where Kenneth Walker. We know positional value is a real thing in the NFL. We see how little running backs are getting paid in the open market right now. I don't think that means that Jahmyr Gibbs is not a tier 1 running back just because he won't go in round 1. I think he should come off the board early round 2. I think Bijan Robinson is the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon and Bijan are the best 2 running back prospects that I have evaluated since doing Saturday to Sunday. It's hard to find a landing spot for Bijan Robinson. Do the Eagles pull the trigger? Not historically the positional value that they look for in round 1. Does Baltimore think about it? Does New England think about it, right? It's hard to find a landing spot in round one that makes sense for Bijan Robinson, but I also can't see round one coming and going and him not being taken when he's in most people's top 10 overall big boards. As for Jahmyr Gibbs, listen, I've comped him to Austin Eckler. I never really bought the Alvin Kamara. There's a 15-pound differential in terms of their playing weight. But if you look at Austin Eckler, same height, same weight, both had really good athletic testing pre-draft. The usage, the role. Austin Eckler has never been a guy who should have been a guy who carried the ball 20 times a game, but he's a guy who would have 16, 17, 18 touches when it's split between running and passing. I think that could be Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he is an elite receiving talent out of the backfield. That's the comp that I've been using here at Saturday Sunday since last summer. And I think I will continue to say that's who I think his ceiling output is. I've heard, other people bring up CJ Spiller. I've heard other people bring up Aaron Jones. I think those are all good comps. I think we're all living in the same world. I've heard even people, Jamal Charles. I don't see as much Jamal Charles, but I think we're all living in the same world. They're not guys that are in between the tackle thumpers who should be carrying 20, 25 times a game. They're guys that could be a integral part of the run game, but be great receiver as well. And all those guys that we just mentioned, I think, fit that bill. I think Austin Eckler is the ceiling case scenario. I could see Aaron Jones, the middle scenario. I could see CJ Spiller, maybe the floor. A lot to like about Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, my tier two, remember, that's guys that we think can go mid-round 2 to mid-round 3. I think this is as deep a tier 2 running back class as we've ever seen. For me, it starts out with Devin Achane out of Texas A&M. I've heard the Javad Best comparisons. I like that. I think he could be, Chris Johnson. I think the size and frame are somewhat comparable. I think this year he showed his ability at his size and frame to withhold and withstand a lot of, heavy workload and handle it, ran between the tackles. Just because he's 188 pounds, he's got pretty good contact balance. He can absorb contact. He's physical as a runner. So I'm not going to limit what I think A-Chain can and can't be at the next level. I think he's going to be more of a space player, and I think you bring a prolific, dynamic piece to an offense. But I'll say the ceiling case scenario there for him is Chris Johnson. I think the floor maybe is a guy like Jahavad Best. I like A-Chain. To me, A-Chain is closer to Gibbs than anybody else is to A-Chain. Personally, for me, I think A-Chain could go early round 2. Even though I put him in this tier, which is more like mid round 2, I do think if anybody makes the jump to the early portion of round 2, where Jahmyr Gibbs is going, I do think it could be Devin Achane. Fourth, I have Tank Bigsby out of Auburn. I think he is a little bit underappreciated because of how poor Auburn's offensive line was. I think it made him at times try to do too much, and I think people look at that as maybe lack of vision or patience. But this is a guy who has got pretty good athleticism for a guy's size, very physical, tough, power runner, can catch the ball out of the backfield. I really like Bigsby's overall game. He's my RB4 in this draft class. Zach Evans out of Ole Miss, obviously transferred from TCU, didn't have the year that most expected, but another guy, he's got juice. He's a guy who can make, big explosive plays. He can be used in the passing game. He's got good size and frame. There's a lot to like about Zach Evans. He never had that monster statistical collegiate year that I think many thought he was in the, potentially going to have, especially this year when he transferred to Ole Miss. But I think the NFL is going to be very intrigued with him. I look at a guy like Tank Bigsby. I could see late second round. I see a guy like Zach Evans. I can see early to middle of round 3, but that's accompanied by the rest of these guys. Ty J. Spears out of Tulane, Eric Gray out of Oklahoma, Israel Abakanda out of Pittsburgh, Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA, who other people are higher on than me, but I still like his game, and Roshan Johnson out of Texas. I know he was Bijan's backup, but to me, I watch him play. I see part Chris Carson. I see part Ramondre Stevenson. The Ramondre Stevenson comp for me is very much that Ramondre Stevenson wasn't a starter, wasn't the bell cow at Oklahoma, and the NFL really liked him. And Stevenson, I think, went early round 4. I think Johnson can go somewhere mid to late round 3 or early portion of round 4, but I like his game a lot. I wanted him in my tier 2. So he's an interesting one. Charbonnet, I think this year's film was a little bit better. I think he needs a little bit of a runway to get going, but once he does, he's hard to take down. His play strength, his power, his contact balance. He's got quick feet for a big guy. I just don't see a lot of stop and start. If he doesn't have a good offensive line, I could see him struggling. I think his pass stuff is a little manufactured at UCLA and a lot of wide open rushing lanes in that Chip Kelly scheme. So I'm not sure he's a read down back at the next level. I think he can be functional as a pass catcher. I think he's probably going to end up being part of a committee, though. Israel Avocanda, speed, explosion. You get him on the space, outside zone teams, and you're going to see Avocanda be a big, big weapon. So I like him here. Eric Gray, I think, is a great pass catching, three down skill set that, I think this year we finally sort of best of him. I liked him since his time at Tennessee. But I like Ray's overall game. I think he's a good athlete. I think he's a good receiver. I think he could, I like the footwork. I think he can make people miss. So he pretty much checks off most of the boxes. And then also right ahead of him, Tyjae Spears. I mean, he's been in the pre-draft process. He's probably generated the most buzz since the regular season ended. If the medicals are fully checked out, I think he's going round 2 or round 3. Explosive player, his footwork, his agility, change of direction, his cutting ability, his burst and acceleration. Tyjae Spears, complete player. Really like his overall game. That's as good of a tier 2 running back group as I've ever had here at Saturday to Sunday. And to be honest with you, even some of my tier 3 guys, I think you can make the case could have even been in tier 2, but I just thought it was, we already had 8 names in it. So I want some names in tier 3. So let me take it over to tier 3. In my tier 3, in order of the way I have him ranked right now, is Chase Brown out of Illinois, Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia, Dwayne McBride out of UAB, and Sean Tucker out of Syracuse. Chase Brown, really good athlete, was on Bruce Feldman's freak list, great performance at the combine, 2 really productive years at Illinois. I know a lot of people, were down on him during the Senior Bowl, but I think he has bounced back from that. He's another guy, late round 3, early round 4. I like what you can get with him, his ability, the explosion and stuff on the perimeter, but he runs tough. He's physical. He's got good contact balance, good leg drive. I really like Chase Brown's game. I think he's got to, work and develop a little bit of the nuances of the running back position. But the physical aspects of it, I really like across the board for Chase Brown. Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia, I think he's one of the best receiving backs in this draft class. I think he's right near the top in terms of his receiving capabilities. So I like that aspect of his game. I would classify it as very good to great. I think he's a tough runner. I think people, because he's such a great receiver, maybe want to pigeonhole him as like a change of pace perimeter guy. I don't think that's necessarily how McIntosh wins. I think he's not a great athlete. I think he's an average to above average athlete, but he's got some short area bursts. I think he runs tough. I think he runs hard. I think he's better between the tackles or in a gap run scheme, whether it's inside or outside. I don't think he's a guy who's very shifty, but you combine, his skill set as a runner with his great receiving capabilities. I think McIntosh will go somewhere late round 3 to early round 4. Dwayne McBride out of UAB. Right now, he's a complete unknown in the passing game, but highly productive runner, good size and frame. It shows burst, shows acceleration, shows play strength, physicality, and toughness, like Dwayne McBride's game. And then Sean Tucker, if before the year started, you would have told me Sean Tucker was down here, I would have been surprised. He was in most people's top 5, top 6s in the pre-draft process. But it's been a little bit of a down year for him, to be honest with you. I think there's some question marks about his ability to make people miss. I think he's a little bit more, while he's a good athlete, I think he's more of a linear type athlete, but he's got great speed. He's got great burst. He's got explosiveness. He's got acceleration. So that part, I think if he has a crease, he could take it to the house. For me, I'm not sure he has the stop, start, make you miss type thing. So, you look at a guy like him and Abakanda, I don't think they're all that different. I think Abakanda had a much better year, more productive. And I think Sean Tucker, will probably go a half a round to a round maybe later than a guy like Abakanda, but I think their strengths are pretty similar. Good size, good frame, good athlete, good burst, straight line speed type guy. Not going to be a guy who's going to make people miss, in confined spaces. That's not really their game. So that's kind of my tier 3 there. If I take this to tier 4, my tier 4 guys who I think could be round 5, round 6 type guys, these are some specialists. I start with Deuce Vaughn. I know he's 5'5". I know he's an outlier, but I love Deuce Vaughn, the player. whether you want to say Tariq Cohen, whether you want to say Darren Sproles. All I know is Deuce Vaughn carried a heavy workload in Kansas State. He's a great receiving back. He can make people miss. He runs tough for a guy his size. I think someone's going to get Deuce Vaughn in round 5 or round 6. They're going to have a guy who can be part of their running back room. You can do different things with him. I think he could be a weapon at a passing game. You can get him 3, 4, 5 handoffs a game in space. He could be a returner. I think Deuce Vaughn is going to bring real life value to an NFL team. You see what a guy like Boston Scott does in Philadelphia. I think Deuce Vaughn could be a better version of that. And if he gets the opportunity, he could be a Tariq Cohen early in his career before the injury set in, where he could be really impactful. He could have some Darren Sproles type moments. I think that's in the works if he gets an opportunity. He needs some round 5, early round 6 draft capital to guarantee himself probably a roster spot. But I like Deuce Vaughn, the player. I know the limitations. I know the outlier in terms of the size. But Deuce Vaughn is a guy who I'd want on my football team for sure. Keaton Mitchell out of East Carolina, an explosive player. I think he's only like 180 pounds. So undersized for sure, but speed, burst, acceleration, make you miss ability, cutting ability. There's a home for Keaton Mitchell to be a part-time player that adds speed, explosion, and burst to an offense. I like Keaton Mitchell. He's a guy that I think a team might even think about him in round 4 because of the explosive component that he adds if that's what they're looking for, but maybe they couldn't get a guy like Devin Achane in round 2. They can think Keaton Mitchell round 4, round 5, and have some of the similar aspects in terms of what he brings to an offense. Evan Hull out of Northwestern, Travis Dye and Muhammad Ibrahim out of Minnesota make up the rest of my tier 4. Evan Hull tested out, really good athlete, really good pass protector, very good receiver, tough runner. A lot to like about Evan Hull. Someone's going to like Evan Hull a lot based on what he brings, his complete skill set, very intriguing. So I like Evan Hull, the player. I could see him going off the board somewhere in round 5, because of what he offers. Travis Dye at USC, he was a guy who I really thought I liked him a lot on film last year, and I really thought he looked good this year. But obviously, people are going to look at him. He's not a great athlete. He's probably an above average to good athlete. I think he can make people miss. I like the footwork, the change of direction, the agility. I like his pass catching ability. So I think he can play a role similar to Deuce Vaughn, similar to Keaton Mitchell. I think Travis Dye very much in round 5 or round 6 would be a good value pick for a team who could have, and he could have a role. Muhammad Ibrahim, if Jeff was here, he would talk about how much he likes him. He's a guy who I think, when he's been healthy, we've seen very good productivity for him. I think it's all about contact balance, play strength, leg drive, vision, patience, natural run instincts. He just knows how to pick up extra yards. He knows how to find the right hole. He allows his blocks to develop. There's a lot to like about Muhammad Ibrahim's game. If the medicals are okay, he could be a guy that just starts out as somebody's 3rd or 4th running back. But I can quickly, if given the opportunity, see him be a valuable role as part of a committee, because I do think he's a guy that, if given the opportunity, will be successful due to those run instincts that he has. So he rounds out my tier 4. And then tier 5 are my late round guys. These are guys who I think are probably round 7 or priority free agents. Every year, around 21 to 24 running backs get taken. So right here, we're looking at, I have approximately in my rankings and in my tiers right now, I have 26 running backs. So 26 running backs, all of them are not going to get drafted. So I think some of these guys in my last tier here aren't going to get drafted. My last tier is made up of Chris Rodriguez out of Kentucky, Deneric Prince out of Tulsa, Tiyon Evans out of Louisville, Sir Roderick Thompson out of Texas Tech, Tavion Thomas out of Utah, and Cameron Peoples out of App State. The one who intrigues me the most, too, I would say, Deneric Prince, really impressive athletic testing at the combine. I think there's some untapped upside there. And then Chris Rodriguez out of Kentucky, tough, physical, interior runner. He could even be probably in tier 4 right there with Muhammad Ibrahim in terms of what he offers. I think he's an early down player, but can grind out tough yards, can be a goal line, short yardage runner, can be a volume runner if you need him to be. So there's aspects of Chris Rodriguez's game that I do really like. So there it is, guys. My running back tiers. If we kind of set this up, guys, in terms of guys that I think could be risers, uh, let's kind of take a look at it from that perspective. I already talked about if there's one guy in tier 2 who I think could be a tier 1 type running back for me, it's Devin A. Chain. That's how much I believe in A. Chain's talent, his big play ability, his ability to be a game breaker. So Devin A. Chain would be the guy who I would say, if there was a guy at the top of tier 2 who I can make a strong argument could be a tier 1 guy, I think he could be A Chain. I think he could come off the board early round 2. I think a team could look at him and say, we're going to give him 15 touches a game, and he's going to be a returner, and he's going to add an explosive, dynamic piece to our offense and change the dynamic of our entire offense. That's what A Chain could bring to the table. So he'd be my most intriguing guy from tier 2 to make a jump up to tier 1. In tier 3, who could be in tier 2? I'll say I think Chase Brown or Kenny McIntosh would be the guys that could make that jump up. I still think Chase Brown or Kenny McIntosh could even go mid-round 3, but I think late round 3, early round 4 is probably their sweet spot. But I think Chase Brown or McIntosh would be the guys who could be my tier jumpers from tier 3 to be the bottom of my tier 2. In tier 4, I don't think anybody I could see making the jump up to tier 3. If it was one guy, I do think it could be Keaton Mitchell, just due to his explosiveness, his athletic testing. Mitchell would be the guy, even though I like Deuce Vaughn more as a player. I think the limitations keep him in that tier 4. If there was someone who was going to jump up into that tier 3 mix, maybe go in round 4, I think it could be Keaton Mitchell due to the explosiveness and big playability that he offers. And then tier 5, I kind of talked about it. I think Chris Rodriguez very much could be the back end of my tier 4. I think he could easily go in round 5 or round 6. I'm not sure he falls to round 7, but as I talked about, 21 to 24 running backs go. I already have 26 names on my list here. And to be honest with you, there's a lot more that, aren't even on my ranks and tiers yet that are at least worthy of being considered as late round or priority free agents. So I think Chris Rodriguez would be the guy, but that's already, we're talking, about getting, far down the rankings to get to, Chris Rodriguez. He's number 21 on my list. That might be the cutoff point. Maybe, him, Deneric Prince, those would probably be, if I was going to guess right now, those would be the cutoff of the 21st and 22nd running backs taken, which means they'd probably be round 7 guys. If there's 22 running backs taken, the last couple are going to be in round 7. So that could put Rodriguez, Prince, Ibrahim, Dye. Those could be the guys that end up being in round 7, even though I have a couple of those guys a few tiers up. I think it's a really, really strong class. I think it's deep. I think we could see guys who become a strong part of a committee backfield or lead a backfield. I think that number is 10, 12. I've gone on record that after my top 3, I think you really could rearrange 4 through like 12 every single day and shuffle it up and re-rank them because of just how close they are. Other people have Charbonnet all the way up at 3, 4. I am a little bit reserved on him, but I still like him. I still think he should be a mid-round 3 pick. That's a good value for a running back. A guy, if I think he's worthy of going in the middle of round 3, that means I like the player. It's just, for me, he's a little bit further down than some of these other guys. I would take, these other guys like Eric Gray and Nabakanda and, A Chain all ahead of a guy like Charbonnet, who I think fits a certain style. I think you got to have a great power gap run team to really maximize Zach Charbonnet's skill set. But strong class. It'll be interesting to see where Bijan goes in round 1. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs goes in round 1. That's not what I'd be projecting right now. Where does he come off the board in round 2? Is Devin A. Chain the third running back taken, as I think he should be? And where does A Chain go? Does he go early round 2, mid round 2, late round 2? Do we see a massive gap after Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think worst case is early round 2? Do we see a full round go by and then the run on running backs goes somewhere in round 3? And that's when we start seeing, Tank Bigsby, Tyjae Spears, Zach Charbonnet, and all those guys come off the board. And how many guys in my tier 2 aren't even going to end up going on day 2? What if there's only 5? What if there's Bijan and Gibbs and then only 4 more running backs taken on day 2? Well, that's going to leave a lot of really good running backs in round 4, and then that's going to push really, really good running backs to round 5. So that's where I think the depth is. And if you go around the landscape of the NFL, there's not a ton of landing spots that you're like, yeah, they definitively need a running back 1 or running back 2. They're there, but not enough to fit 10, 12, 13 people in, and then another really 6, 7 solid ones after that. See this running back play out. I think in terms of dynasty, it's going to be really interesting because we know we love drafting, running backs in dynasty rookie drafts, but I don't think a lot are going to have clear, open depth charts that it's going to be drafting based on draft capital and the talent that we like. But it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the pieces kind of fit together at the running back position, because I just don't think there's a ton of openings. And obviously some of those openings will probably be taken by the Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs type. And then where does that leave the next wave of guys in terms of how quickly they might be relevant in terms of their NFL careers? It's going to be fun to kind of watch that. So if you're enjoying these TierBuster shows, first get back and watch the last one on the quarterback tiers. We'll produce 2 more after this, wide receivers and tight ends. Again, we'll probably keep these shows to like that 20 to 30 minute time range. Very digestible. Share the tiers, share who's in my tiers and the rankings within my tiers, guys who could be jumping up and down. And then after we get through these tier shows, maybe a little bit of a free agent recap in terms of dynasty and impacting the draft, and then some guests who are really excited. Hopefully we get Mark Schofield back to talk quarterbacks, and a couple other guys I'm kind of hoping to set up in terms of scheduling to kind of get it through the early part of April before we kind of hone in on the last week or two prior to the NFL draft, final rankings, draft projections, notebook launches, all that stuff. So if you're enjoying this content, get over to the website. SS Football is the fastest and easiest way to get there. Check out our premium content tab, and for $9.99, you get access to all of our premium notebooks. You get the scouting notebook. It has almost 100 detailed offensive skill player profiles, strengths, functional areas, developmental areas, a snapshot of how they win, NFL role, NFL scheme fit, and a fantasy spin. You get the rankings notebook, which has all our different rankings in it. It has these tiers in it. It'll have our dynasty rookie rankings live during the draft, and it has our positional dynasty rankings, which are due for an update post free agency for sure. And then in April, you get the draft projections notebook, which will have tabs for every position, offense and defense, their height, their weight, their college, their position, their athletic testing from the combine, and a snapshot of how they win and their developmental areas. It has tabs for every offensive and defensive player by position, ranked based on everything I am hearing to try to forecast and project the NFL draft to help guide you in terms of draft weekend, in terms of what we think is going to happen. We've had tremendous success in our draft projections notebook. We'll have a tab where we try to project what 32 players come off the board in round 1, what 100 or so players come off the board in rounds 1 through 3, and then trying to project what like 262 players we think will come off the board in rounds 1 through 7. If you can, please check out the notebooks. It is the best way to support the show. If you've purchased it in the past, we strongly urge to try to purchase it again. If you've never purchased it, but you've been a longtime listener or you're new to Saturday Sunday, we'd greatly appreciate you purchasing it. We want to give you a lot of value for that $9.99, and we think we do, but it is the lifeblood of what we do here. It helps us continue to do what we do in terms of server fees and website fees and subscriptions we need. So we do need help in terms of maintaining and keeping up what we do here at Saturday Sunday. If you cannot purchase the notebooks, please, wherever you listen to the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, download, subscribe to our YouTube channel page as well. Anything to help us out in that regard as well. So on behalf of our sound tech engineer, David Nakano, and myself, thank you for joining us, and we look forward next time taking you from Saturday to Sunday.